The year was 1881, and the place was Switzerland. John Buehler became interested in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he began to attend their meetings. Everyone in the community hated the Mormons, as they called him, but John felt something. He comments that his own father, if he'd been alive, would have so opposed his baptism. He never would have allowed it. But, he said, "My father was taken so that I could join the church and hear with an open mind and heart." End of quote. Well, eventually the persecution became so intense that it seemed everyone was up in arms against them, and it made their lives a living hell. Not only did John suffer from the persecution, but so too did his beloved wife Emma and their daughters. Then came the day when John made the decision that he was going to be baptized in the small river near to his home. He comments, quote, "When I came home, my poor heartbroken wife felt my wet hair on my ear. Then she cried out loud and almost fainted, knowing that it was done, that I was now one of those terribly despised Mormons. She cried and wept all night." End of quote. Well, as John later recorded these events, he said, "Indeed, it makes me cry myself while I write these lines, for I know how awful she felt. We had 3 beautiful children. She loved me and loved our children. But her own mother and father, grandfather, and all her brothers and sisters turned their backs on her and drove her almost insane. They even called the minister from that town, and he told her that if she joined that horrible church, she would be lost forever in hell." End of quote. She endured a full measure of the persecution that came upon John, and she wasn't even a member of the church. Finally, John announced that he wanted to immigrate to Zion. He wanted to come and be with the main body of the saints. When you look at his story of persecution, it's not hard to understand why they might want to leave their home country in the face of such hatred. But at this point, knowing what was happening, the persecutions of Emma's family became so intense that they pulled her away from her husband, basically took her and the children away. John now faced the reality of having to immigrate to Zion without his family, or stay in Switzerland, give up the church, and keep his family. Nevertheless, John made the decision that if it came to that, he would go to Zion without his family if he had to. But not wanting to, he turned his heart to the Lord and poured out his soul in mighty prayer to God. So did John's sister, Verna, who was also a member of the church. So too did John's wife, Emma. In the morning, Emma said, "Well, Father and Mother, I have decided to go with my husband to America." Her parents surprised her by saying, "Perhaps it is best you go, and we will help you with your children and take you to your husband." End of quote. John recounted, "When I looked out the window the next morning and saw my wife and 3 little girls, accompanied by her parents, coming down the street, tears filled my eyes, and I knew my prayers and those of my sister had been heard and answered. The Lord touched their hearts, and my family was allowed to return to me, and they were permitted to undertake the journey in peace." End of quote. God is good. Sacrifice brings forth the blessings of heaven. With stories like that in your family, write them down. Tell everyone. Make sure every child, every grandchild, and every great-grandchild knows the priceless heritage that is theirs.